Hey there, welcome to Talk to Me Tuesday on a Tuesday. I'm your host, Madi B, and today we have a very special show. Now, I don't know if you guys remember, but we had a special show earlier this month, and we were continuing that specialness and that type of show in today's show as we reflect on the importance of this month. We recognize and observe the month of Sexual Abuse Awareness Month. Today, we'll be adding more important information in regards to our sexual abuse cases. There's so many out there, and it's super important that we continue to educate and we continue to talk about these open and transparent conversations. So, we're going to take a look at what that path looks like for our survivors on getting some type of legal resolution. So, today I have the pleasure of introducing a prominent Houston attorney at D. Miller and Associates PLLC, who not only focuses on our sexual abuse cases, but was a former chief felony prosecutor and chief of the Child Exploitation Division. Now, I want to go ahead and welcome Attorney Rochelle Guiton.
Hi, Madi. How are you?
I'm great. I'm really excited that you're on the show. We actually were just talking about this. You haven't been on the show for some time, but we're going to talk a little bit of why, right? Because you have some really big cases right now, and we're just so excited to have you back.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So, I kind of made that introduction of who you are, what you do as an attorney in the Houston area, not only Houston, but also nationwide. So I want you to tell our viewers, what is it that you're currently doing and how does that correlate with what you've done?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you mentioned that previously, I was a former chief prosecutor at the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office in Montgomery County, Texas. And I did that for just shy of about 10 years. And I worked on all types of criminal cases, mostly primarily sexual abuse cases. And now, of course, I've kind of crossed over from the criminal world and now work on civil litigation cases, but still work on sexual assault cases.
Wow. I know we're going to talk about that here in a little bit on what that really means, the criminal, the civil, all of that for the viewers that are watching. But, I mentioned also at the beginning this month, it's Sexual Abuse Awareness Month, along with other important things that we also celebrate. But this month is very important to us in particular, along with the other months that we also have. But tell us how important this month is for you.
Absolutely. I mean, Sexual Abuse Awareness Month is also Child Abuse Prevention Month, and it literally means everything to me. I think that it's important that we all take the opportunity right now, as to collaborate and make people aware of the signs and symptoms, things that we see, the statistics, things of that nature, so that we can all just have a conversation. I think that's kind of the vital part of, having April as an awareness month, is that it's time for us to pay attention, have a conversation starter. Sometimes it just looks like a Facebook post or an Instagram post, but it really is a conversation piece. And so I think, that's why it's so vitally important, so that we can remember survivors during this time and the difficulties that they have with the abuse that they've experienced.
Yeah, and you said it very well. That's exactly why we're here. We're here to have this open conversation for someone that is watching and it's not so comfortable for them to talk about or even recognize some of these things. And so, although this is a very uncomfortable conversation, it's a very difficult conversation to have with either your children, your family members, or your spouse. But we want to definitely open it up because it's a prominent problem. And just like we see in the TV, a lot of these conversations and where we're at now in 2021, we're having these difficult conversations.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely necessary.
Absolutely necessary. So we're going to talk today about those sexual abuse cases. What do they look like? What do they feel like? What is the legal side of things? And just really educating our audience on their rights. So I want you to tell us a little bit. You are a little bit more on that front line on the legal aspect of these sexual abuse cases. So for those that are watching, tell us a little bit of what you've seen in the world that has moved you in a way that has put you to focus on this type of case and this type of litigation.
That's a big question, Monty. It started out for me just being passionate about those types of cases. Very early on at the district attorney's office, I feel like that, and I don't like to use the word victim, but in a sense, I was a very victim oriented prosecutor. It didn't matter to me if it was a sexual abuse case or a theft or a DWI. I was victim centered. And I knew that I would be a lifetime, prosecutor, plaintiff's attorney to fight for victims. Of course, I learned about 4 or 5 years into my career that I enjoyed working on sexual abuse cases. And it's just something that I've been passionate about. And quite frankly, feel like it's kind of a God-given gift. Not everyone, has the tough skin to be able to repetitively look at these types of cases and work on these cases. It can sometimes be emotionally draining. And they're hard cases, but in my opinion, the rewards are so much greater to be able to help people. That's just always been my passion.
Yeah. And look, as an attorney, you guys go out there in front of a judge and you tell your clients, your survivor stories. And it's almost like you have great rewards in putting, in your case, right, someone in jail for years for the crime that has been done. Now, it is very important as a society to be able to support these survivors that have gone through so much in their lives already. So I want you to tell us how these survivors in the forefront that you've been and how you've told their stories, how that has touched you to keep fighting for them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, every case is going to dictate, what is necessary to get that survivor to the next level and where they want to be, to feel somewhat whole, to feel that justice has been done. And so, one of the biggest things for me is being able to get them to that point, communicating with them, asking them, what is a good result for them. I can't always get what they want, what I want, but I do think that it's my job as their attorney, as their advocate, to be able to explain that process, which doors are open for us, which ones might be closed, which ones are advantageous for us to try and go through, and kind of just navigate the legal field for them. I think that is probably the biggest part, in making them feel like and know that people care about them, that we can get something done, that we can make changes, even bringing awareness like this show today, bringing awareness of the things that they've experienced and that it matters.
Yeah, I know that those survivors that have been able to work with you are very lucky, because I could see the passion in your eyes and also kind of hear it with how your heart beats in these type of cases. And I think they're very lucky to have an attorney like you. So now, Attorney Rochelle, we kind of talked about sexual abuse, and I want to kind of go into a little bit more detail. There's a lot of sexual abuse cases nowadays, after the Me Too movement, that Us Too, it's really opened up the door. I say that very sadly because there's a lot of these cases in mass quantities, to where it makes me think, as a person, that, wow, all of this has been going on. And we didn't really know about it until now. A lot of this stuff is coming to the forefront. So I want you to tell our viewers specifically the sexual abuse cases that you handle and that you work side by side. I know there's many, but I just want to focus on the ones that you have experience in.
Absolutely. So, of course, I worked tons of different types of cases as a prosecutor, but more recently today, I work on clergy abuse cases, which include, cases against, Catholic priests, and other types of clergy members. I also work a Boy Scouts of America docket, which entails sexual abuse that happened while a part of a participant of the Boy Scouts organization. I also work the USC, or University of Southern California, both the women's sexual abuse case that recently settled and the men's case against Dr. Kelly that is still currently, pending. And so, yes, I do work several different types. And Marty, you're exactly right. There is a lot that goes on. I think, the times have changed, right? We're in 2021 now. There is a wealth of knowledge at our fingertips. Social media makes it easier. The news makes it easier to travel and get that information. And, I believe that survivors hope, and I hope that that will continue to grow, that they feel safe to share because other people are sharing and creating those platforms for them to share. And so it doesn't mean I don't think that it happens more necessarily. It's just that, we're creating platforms and the means of communicating, and people feel safe to share what's happened to them.
Yeah, I think that's the key right there, is feeling safe, because we're saying, to go in a vulnerable time of their life. A lot of people just want to tuck it away. They want to just close the door and just toss the key in the water, never look back. But we are in the times where some are still exercising that, and some are more comfortable and safe talking about it, right? It's crazy, but it's not as uncommon to hear these kinds of stories to where there is that fear. There's still a little bit of fear right there, right? But it just makes it a little bit better to have someone like yourself and tell their story and feel safe. Now, I want to kind of go into detail of these case types that you kind of said. And these case types right here, it breaks my heart. I just want to start off by saying that. But I want a little bit more information, because the first one that resonated is Boy Scout abuse. Okay. I want you to kind of explain what happened here, because if I think of Boy Scout abuse, I'm thinking of little boys. And when I say little, we're talking, oh my gosh, at the age of as young as 5 all the way to 18. And I just can't help but to think, how could they? So what exactly happened here for those that are watching, that there is a sexual abuse case?
Well, unfortunately, Madi, you are correct about the age group. It varies from very young to older teenage boys, primarily, and they would participate in the scouting activities, whether it would have been camping or, team meeting, group meetings. And as they were participating in those scout activities, they were being sexually abused. And that comes in different, every case is different. It could have been by a scout leader, scout assistants. It could have been by other scouts. And it varies from case to case. It happens for some, it only happened one time. For some, it happened for several years. And when you have an organization like Boy Scouts of America, one that is trusted all over the country by parents and professionals alike, it's very difficult to break that kind of authoritative trust, position that they have, whereas parents and teachers and churches are allowing those organizations to work with the children. And so this is kind of a result of the break of trust.
Right. And so tell us a little bit about how many years, if you can answer it, or if you have the amount, how many years has this happened in the Boy Scout, or is this kind of something recent? It's just a little bit appalling to me that I'm like, since when?
No, Mani, this has gone on for several decades of abuse. And so unfortunately, we do have many survivors that have lived with this for 30, some 40 years, have lived with what has happened to them. This particular case is a bankruptcy case. The Boy Scouts of America has filed for bankruptcy. And so it's what I would coin a mass tort bankruptcy case. And so there are several thousand, and if I believe that the number is somewhere upwards of 90,000 claimants
Wow.
that are alleging sexual abuse with regard to Boy Scouts of America. And so it's a very difficult case. And yeah, this is just, some of this stuff is very mind blowing, but I take a lot of pride in the individuals that have trusted me to in our firm to work on their cases. And so, yeah, we're very delicately, handling these.
Yeah, this is crazy numbers that you just mentioned. And even crazier is that you're saying that this happened for decades. So I want you to kind of tell our viewers and what you are doing as an attorney to help these survivors, and what are you doing as far as even on the legal side to help them on their road of recovery to restore. We're talking about a child that now their life has totally changed 20, 30 years later. Now they didn't have that, normal childhood because it was tainted a little bit. So tell us what you're doing on helping this type of case.
Right. So, again, just, as I've said before, every case is going to be different. Every survivor is going to be different in how, what happened to them, how it's affected them, and how they choose to go forward. What I think is most important is that, I always want them to relate to us what types of things will be helpful to them, what would they like to see happen. And we do have a social worker and a survivor advocate on our staff here at the firm that assist me with, communicating with our survivors, whether or not they need resources like counseling or therapy, to help them kind of process all of this. Some of them, may not have thought of this for 20 years because, most of us, right, if something like this happens, we're doing everything that we can to forget about it, right? And then they have an opportunity to seek some justice against the organization that, turned a blind eye to this. And then it just sort of rekindles all of that, sort of reopens all of those wounds. And so I do, want them to be able to process that and be able to first mentally take care of themselves. And so, we do make sure that they know that we have those resources out there, and our advocates that can assist them to find those resources wherever they are in the country.
Yeah, I think that's amazing that you have a team set up for these type of survivors and type of cases. Another shocking one that you said was clergy sexual abuse. Now, for those that are watching, we're talking in the church level. Okay. Again, I'm shocked and I kind of want to know what happened here. Are we talking about actual priests and, those of higher power there that are committing some of these allegations?
Yes, unfortunately, Marty, that's exactly what I'm referring to. Priests, people that generally are trusted, right, in the community, in their churches, by parents, by teachers. Is the person that like a doctor or a scout leader that we all look to and trust and hope that they all want the best interest for our children. And unfortunately, there are things that happen in the dark, and I do hope that the work that we do, this show will shed some light on those things.
Yeah. And just to shed a little bit more light on the information of the clergy, are we talking certain church, certain areas? Is it all types of religion? How deep does this go?
So it does happen all over the country. It happens in different types of religion. Specifically, right now, I'm working on a bankruptcy case against the New Orleans Archdiocese. Is one that's just one of the dockets that I'm working on. But unfortunately, this is widespread, and so it could happen in other areas. It does happen in other churches and religions, and just it's I always will say, we can't say what an abuser looks like. There's no look, right? And so it could be anyone. And so you've got to remember that, even, in the circumstance of being a part of a church and a clergy member, unfortunately, no one is exempt.
Yeah. It literally makes me super sad on some of these type of cases, but we're kind of not done here. I know The other one you mentioned was collegiate sexual abuse. This is one that I know we may have seen in the media. University of Michigan, University of Ohio State, University of Southern California. I'm only naming three, a handful, but there's so many more. Okay. So, what has happened here, or what, based upon your experience and the type of cases you have, what has really happened? Like, who's the abuser? Is it students, teachers? What's going on here?
Yeah. So again, every case is going to be different. The case that I've primarily worked on, and really truly have been blessed to work alongside Andy Rubenstein, which is the head of our litigation team and the plaintiff's liaison counsel in California. But I worked on the University of Southern California case, and Dr. George Tyndall. And what basically happened there is that the female students, would go to the Student Health Center at USC for their women's health check and their wellness visits. And George Tyndall would sexually abuse them in varying degrees. And each case was different. But the scope of that case was just extremely grave. And he did this over 3 decades. So it was I'm very proud of the work that we were able to do on that case. In fact, and you stated, I think that it has been in the media, and overall with the mass tort case, along with the class action lawsuit, it came to be a $1.1 billion case. And, while the numbers, don't even, touch the surface of what these women experienced, I do think that it speaks volumes. And, and that's why it's so important when these things come out in the media, because we are taking a stance against these universities in the hope that things like this will scare them and make sure to bring things like this to the light.
Yeah, what you're doing is making the whole world aware of what's happening and holding them accountable. It's no longer a secret. It's no longer tucked away in the closet and no one knowing about it. I think there's a huge importance in that, and especially now that we have these platforms to go on. It's not just the media. Now it could be as simple as social media and putting it out there, as well as we've seen in a lot of these moving cases just as recently, even with some social injustice. Now, a lot of the things that you mentioned really move me, right? We're talking men and women. And another thing that you kind of kept saying on the consensus of all three of these cases is this happening for decades. So let me ask you this more on the legal side of things. So if something happens decades ago, 40 years ago, do I or someone who is watching still have a case and could still file a lawsuit? What is there time frames that we have to know about? Like, tell us a little bit more about that.
So the first thing I always say is that when someone has questions about that, is to always contact an attorney. Every single case will be different. But yes, there are statutes of limitations that come with every single case, and it's different for every case type in every state. And so you absolutely have to be aware of that. I do think that just in short, and not to make this, advisory of like statutes of limitations, but I do think that it's been great in some states to have the support of the legislature to make those changes in the law so that we can open what we call an open window for sexual abuse cases, especially in cases where there is a large volume of abuse that's happened, and being able to give the survivors some recourse and to give them some justice for what's happened to them. But yes, in short, every case is going to have a statute of limitations, and it's always best to get an attorney that can look at the facts of your case and determine whether or not, what options you have available to you.
Yeah, I think that's a great way for you and perspective for you to put it in. And I will say, someone may not be able and comfortable to say their story now, but may have the courage in 20 years. And I think, I don't know, you tell us, is the law written to support that? Or is that something you guys, as attorneys, as clients, as survivors, go out and fight to make a change and have your rights opened? And, the word that you use there. But tell us a little bit about how you're facing that with the law.
Yeah, so again, it's going to be different with every single case. With the USC case, we had the opportunity of being able to lobby and work with the legislature to have that window opened with the law, which is called AB 1510. And so we had that opportunity. And it doesn't mean that those opportunities can't be had on other cases in other states, but it's sort of, it's going to depend on the dynamics of the case, the facts of the case, what is going on in the legislature. It could very well be a state that currently has an open statute now. It depends on lots of different things. I don't want, anyone watching this show to make any kind of assumptions, and absolutely would want you to, speak to an attorney. But yeah, there are avenues out there. And I think that, it's important to make sure that you have an attorney that's willing to explore those options. I do know that there are survivors out there that aren't ready to talk about what happened to them. In some cases, similar to what happened at USC, some of the survivors, this was their first gynecological exam. So you just think that you're new, you're a freshman and sophomore in college, you've never had this type of exam before. It's already very uncomfortable, intrusive, and so then you don't know what to expect. You don't know what should or shouldn't happen. And so, there's lots of different dynamics that play into, when you would tell, how you tell, that goes into the thought process of what, affects the statute of limitations.
Yeah, and I think you said that very perfect in regards to every case is different. So if you guys have a question specific to your case, if you send us a private message, a direct message, we'll make sure that we get you to one of the 8 attorneys that we have as well. Rochelle herself, attorney Andy Rubenstein as well. They all work on sexual abuse. So we'll be able to help if you have any questions. And then take it from there. Now, I do have a couple of comments, Attorney Rochelle Guiton. We do have Jonathan saying, Rochelle Guiton, Attorney of the Year. And we do have Eric saying, and prayer hands. So I agree. Look, you guys, not just yourself, but your team and the team of attorneys that you're also with. This is amazing that you guys are doing these type of things for these type of cases that are heartbreaking. I think it's amazing that you have a calling to do this, and you do it so well in telling the survivor stories. So another big thing, Attorney Rochelle, is all these cases kind of have another thing in common. They have one thing in common that has been broken. And you said it earlier, and that was trust. So tell us a little bit more on what you've heard from the survivors and what this means. I mean, you trust your church, you trust your leader, you trust your doctors. This is huge. So shed some light for us on that.
Absolutely. So, that is a common theme throughout sexual abuse cases. And it's not just on the case types that we mentioned. It's even on, regarding sexual abuse cases with family members. We have a level of trust that, we put in people in general. But then when you throw on a white coat for a doctor, or, you throw on the Boy Scout patch, and this is someone who is supposed to be teaching or preaching and instilling good things, right? Positivity in the lives of the people that they touch. And they turn around and it turns it into something, pure evil. It is unfortunate, it's, the authority that they have, we automatically, even, in a very first doctor's visit, if you just think when you go to a doctor, you're generally going because of your health concerns. You're already sick and you want to get better, or you want to avoid being sick, and you're going to them because you trust them and you're hoping that they're going to help you. And so even in that very first visit, you're going with with the mindset that this is someone that you can trust. This is someone who's sworn, taken an oath that they are going to do what's best for their patients. And so, that is part of the power and the manipulation and control that comes with it, because we're all so trusting of them. And so even when, a patient has gone to see a doctor and they've done something inappropriate and they report, you think, oh, well, there's no way that he's done that. He's a doctor and he's, has so many different accolades, and he, has been with the school for so many years, and we've trusted and, believe that he's doing the right thing. And so it's a really, really, really hard barrier to overcome. Really hard barrier.
And look, you said a lot of great things there. I put my life in some of the hands of these individuals. You're trusting them, not only that you're going to do a great job and you got the proper education, but trusting in my life, in your lives, whoever it is that we're speaking in that. A life, to me, there's no value to that. A life, right. An experience. And this resonates very deep with me, right? And I know this is why this is a hard conversation, but, we're talking lives. Yeah.
And add to that, Madi, that you're going to them most often at the most vulnerable times in your life, and you are looking for help. And so in that, they're supposed to provide that. And sometimes, your vision is just kind of blurred on, well, is this really happening? Am I thinking of this wrong? Am I not perceiving what's happening correctly? And then, those survivors can question themselves, question whether or not, they're thinking properly about what's happened to them. And oftentimes that in and of itself creates what we call a delayed outcry.
Yeah, this is very difficult, very tough topic to talk about. Now, I do want to highlight on some of the legal aspects that you actually mentioned a little earlier. Not that I was ignoring it, but I wanted to bring it up at this point in time. Now, all of those cases that you talked about, Boy Scout, clergy, I'm not sure if you mentioned it on Collegiate, but you mentioned that these are in bankruptcy law. And I don't know about our viewers, but when I hear that, I'm thinking, great, it's over. There's no hope, right? Bankruptcy to me is just like a chapter that's closed. Like they don't have money, or they don't have anything to really get restoration and compensation. So is it a done deal, or how does this work in the legal world?
No, that's a great question. So, of course, in some circumstances that can be the case, but generally when you're dealing with a mass tort bankruptcy case, these particularly with larger companies, they're oftentimes facing large mass tort liability. And so when they're facing large liabilities, the bankruptcy is typically the best way to protect the company, to protect the assets. And then you can group all of those cases together instead of, for example, Boy Scouts of America having 90,000 claims filed all over the country. They're all filed in one action, and you can deal with all of the assets and the liabilities in one case. And so generally it's a good thing, depending on the type of case, the company that you're dealing with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but that's a very interesting point. I'm glad I asked that question, because I don't think that there's, it could be a positive thing. So definitely if this happens, I always say, ask your attorney as many questions as possible, because, we don't know. You guys know, right? Another good question I would say that a lot of people, including myself, want to know or even assume is that these cases are class action. And I'm just going to tell you I'm guilty of that, because when you watch the news and the media, that's exactly what they say. It's a class action, the class action. So can you explain the difference of the class action and regular, and if these apply under a class action lawsuit?
Sure. So there's a big distinction between, so they look alike, right? When you have a mass tort case with hundreds or thousands of claimants, and you have a class action with hundreds or thousands of claimants, and it kind of looks the same, but in fact, they're very different. Generally, I can say that a class action suit involves, and it will be situate the class of people similarly. And so they'll all be grouped based on the type of case or tort or injury that they've suffered.
Mhm.
In a mass tort case, all of these claimants are filed in one action, but they each have their own individual claims, and they won't necessarily be grouped in that way. Each plaintiff will have to show their separate facts and injuries or damages for that particular case. And so it's a little bit different in the way that it's litigated. And again, one of those things I think is very important, similar to a bankruptcy case. If you think that you have a case, the best thing to do is to speak with an attorney. And where's the harm, right? Most of these cases, mass tort cases, mass tort bankruptcy cases, the cases that we work on a contingency fee, as do most attorneys on these types of cases. And so generally there's no harm. You can call and ask all the questions that you need to make sure that you are doing what's best for you.
Mm-hmm. And kind of putting it in layman's term, I'm going to try to summarize it a little bit, but mass tort cases, every case is treated individually with your own injuries and your own facts and all that good stuff, versus class action. It's almost kind of grouped in a class. The best way I can kind of put that, is that a good way to put the difference between the two?
Yes, each class of plaintiffs are going to be grouped together, and they'll be dealt with as a group.
Now, in your cases that you do mention that you handle earlier, which is the Boy Scout, the clergy, and the collegiate, are all of those individually a case is a case, or do you actually work with class action lawsuits in any of those case types?
Right. So none of those cases are class action lawsuits. So the Boy Scouts and the clergy abuse cases that I mentioned, specifically the New Orleans Archdiocese, those are bankruptcy suits. I also have an Purdue Pharma case, which is a bankruptcy suit. And then the USC case that we discussed against Dr. George Tyndall is a state action, and it's a mass tort case.
Okay. Wow, you're
all
really
different, but we generally, I am not engaged on any class action lawsuits right now.
Got it. I think that's a very fair question. If any of you guys are watching right now, instead of, thinking everything's class action, just always ask, because I know sometimes I see in the media and it's a little misleading. So that's why I had to kind of ask you that question. Another big question that I would say, and I'm also guilty of this, is, where does this case fall in? I know I hear criminal law and civil law, and I know you've actually had experience with both. But where do these fall? Are they together? Are they separate type of cases? How does this work?
So civil and criminal cases are going to be completely separate. While, I may be able to, in either circumstance, right, even as a prosecutor, I can use information that may have been discovered during the civil litigation, or vice versa. But the cases and actions are completely separate. And so one would be filed in a court with criminal jurisdiction, and one would be filed in a court with civil jurisdiction. And so one of the examples that I can give that I think is a really good example is the USC case. So we've been working on the civil case that recently settled. And then there is also a criminal case that is pending, and Dr. George Tyndall has been, criminally charged with several different counts for the abuse at USC. And so those are completely separate actions. Wow. And he's filed, Dr. George Tyndall is filed on as a defendant in a criminal action.
Wow. Okay. I think that's also another completely different show that we can have on the differences on criminal and civil, because I have literally a 50 million questions pop in my head in regards to that. But, all of these types of cases are different, as you kind of been mentioning. They all have one thing in common. That's betrayal of trust and sexual abuse. But other than that, they're all different, right? On how the injuries, how it happened, what type, where did it happen? And just like I mentioned, and you mentioned, this can happen anywhere. Something you said is an abuser doesn't have a certain look, right? And that's what makes this scary, because we have to be very aware of our surroundings. If you have kids, same thing. It's helping each other out. So, what are some things that family members or friends should be aware of, or what kind of things can you help them out just to be attentive of their surroundings?
Sure. I mean, I think that it's just okay to be inquisitive, right? And question your surroundings. Unfortunately, I've been doing this for a long time. And so, I question lots of things, and I'm very guarded with my children. And oftentimes I do get questions, about, hey, give me some examples. What are some things that I can do with my kids to monitor and make sure? And so the first thing that I would do is to make sure, in the case of children, or with your kids, you want to make sure that you're giving them awareness, that you are educating them based on where they are developmentally. Children have to know, things like places that are not okay to touch, things like that, conversations that are inappropriate for them to hear or be a part of, or questions, that are inappropriate for certain adults to ask them. And so I would say, based on the developmental age of your child, that's the way that you can speak to them. Other things that you can do is to make sure that your children know that there are no secrets. I tell them the difference between a good secret and a bad secret. It's okay if dad says, don't tell mom, we're going to surprise her for her birthday. That's a good secret. But if someone is telling you, something happened that was bad, and they say, don't tell mommy, that's a bad secret. Mm-hmm. And so we definitely want our kids to know that. And then in the case of an adult, I think that we know our bodies. We know what we're okay with consenting, and things that make us feel offended, things that are inappropriate, and just being self-aware, for one. And then, as a secondary, going to your doctor, what things are appropriate or inappropriate, or going to work, even in a circumstance of just like harassment, harsh language, inappropriate comments, during doctor visits and things like that, things that make you uncomfortable. It is, don't question the way that those things make you feel. If it makes you feel uncomfortable, it's probably not right. Mm-hmm. And so I think that, just being comfortable, being authentic, and knowing what we find acceptable or not acceptable for us personally is just important, and being okay talking about it. We've said over and over today that this is a difficult topic, and it is, but it doesn't always have to be. Mm-hmm. And so making sure that we have those persons in our lives that we trust, that we can have those candid conversations with, is really important. I think, just kind of ripping the Band-Aid off of it, right? Because it happens, and it's an unfortunate thing that happens in life. And God knows, I wish that it didn't happen as often as it did. But because we have these platforms, because we have people, like, Kim Case and Mary Guiton in our office, and Randy Tuttle, and all of these folks in our office, like in many other offices and resources, being able to talk about that and have conversations is just, extremely important.
Yeah, I agree. And I know we do have a couple of comments right now. One comment: hello, ladies, great work, great conversation by you both, great information. So it starts with us, Attorney Rochelle Guiton. It starts with this platform, and it starts with you guys that are listening, to making it, just like you said. I know it could be difficult for some, but it doesn't have to be, right? And so I think this is awesome. And so I want to thank you for that comment. We do have another one from Eric saying, Attorney Rowe, how are you able to mentally stay engaged in such heartbreaking cases?
That's a good question. And sometimes all that I can say that I think is God. I think that it's a gift. And when, I have tough days, and when I have those cases or those survivors, it breaks your heart. It gets to you emotionally. I try to use that as my fuel to be a better advocate for them, and know that, it's my job, right? Once I consume those emotions and I understand how they feel and what they've gone through, is to flip that around and use that, to fight on their behalf. So,
Yeah.
I think that's the best way that I can say it. And I hope that, there are lots of others out there that, are able to do that and compartmentalize that and be able to use it to fuel the fire to just keep fighting.
Yeah, to fuel the fire. And to piggyback off of that comment from Eric, I also want you to tell our viewers, as an attorney that works with these type of cases, sexual abuse in particularly, what is the most challenging thing about working with these cases?
Um, I would say, being so being able to keep perspective, and to, I think even the question hit the nail on the head, and like being able to, put aside, because unfortunately as the advocate I do have to put aside emotion and be able to, fight for them. I think, it can be kind of a mental fight with defense attorneys and with insurance companies, and all the folks that have opinions about, whether the survivors are believable, and being able to show that they are credible and that what they've experienced is valid. And so, sometimes, unfortunately, fighting on these cases can be an uphill battle.
Mhm.
And, when you can't fight the facts, they find other things, to poke holes in and build, their case facts on things that aren't really even relevant to the case, And so you just got to just keep buckling down and, know that those things are going to come toward you, and just keep fighting.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. And again, I said this before and I'm going to keep saying it again. This team of attorneys is amazing, and to have someone like attorney Rochelle Guiton by your side, or even any of the other attorneys, I think um you guys really passionately get in the story and fight for what's right. And I could feel it in within the show. So I know we mentioned a little earlier, attorney Rochelle Guiton, media attention. There's a lot of media. We've seen the good and the bad that media can do, right? So, a lot of media attention comes with these types of cases because it's letting out the cat out of the bag, or a secret of an institution. So what was your reaction when you first saw the news about the USC sexual abuse, and even the big news of what happened last month?
So, of course, I have, because I've been able to work side by side with so many great attorneys on this case, I actually knew before the news broke. And just quite frankly, I was lost for words. It's been a long, hard fought battle. And I believe that we put forward a good fight for every survivor. I think the best part of it for me was calling those survivors, our clients, and being able to tell them what we've accomplished together,
Mm.
and let them know that we couldn't do this without them putting their trust in us.
Yeah.
Right. And so we talked about how their trust was broken, with a doctor, or similarly on other cases, the clergy and the Boy Scouts and things like that. And so, part of our job as their advocate is to rebuild that trust and hope that they'll put that trust in us to be able to fight for them. And so I think that was the silver lining of it all, is that we can say, this, that we've accomplished this, and it was not without them putting their trust in us, communicating and being open about what happened to them, because they have to, be willing to relay those facts to us. And so,
Yeah.
it again is only, a small surface of what they deserve and what they've experienced, but I think the light at the end of the tunnel is that people see that this happened, and that it was worth them being heard.
Yeah, for sure. I love that you kind of made it full circle there. Their trust was broken and they had to trust again in someone with their life and their story. And, you guys were very, very careful and compassionate with that big word that starts with the T, which is trust. You guys took that seriously because it was already broken. So
If I
I
could
just want,
just add this, Mighty, we have a team that does this. And so we as attorneys don't do this alone.
yeah.
It's the attorneys and the law clerks and the advocates and our social workers and, a full team of case managers that day in and day out, they take calls and, prepare documents and prepare us for court. And so it's a team effort, and I'm really proud of the work that we were able to do.
I think that's amazing. Kudos to you for building an amazing team, being a part of an amazing forefront of attorneys. I think it's great what you are doing for a problem that's huge and that is being brought in the forefront now. You really brought some insight to us on these type of cases. And I know we've always gone a little bit deeper. And so let us know if you guys want some more information on this type of case types. We're here to go deeper and just making it a transparent conversation. The more knowledge we can give our viewers, the more prepared they are with some of these situations. So now, Attorney Rochelle, I always like to end our show, and we're going to end it here shortly in a second because we have something fun at the end of the show. But before we turn the page into that, I always want to ask if you had any words of wisdom or advice to give those viewers that are watching, or just any little tidbit that could help a viewer that is watching that's either dealing with this, that doesn't know that may be dealing with this in the future, and just how to kind of help them out a little bit.
Absolutely. I think, just because of the very fact that it's Sexual Abuse Awareness Month, I think that it is just incumbent on us that, if you have a situation, even if, you don't want to go the route of litigating your case or filing charges and reporting to the police, take just that one step for you so that you can have that, kind of peace of mind and find someone, a resource of any kind to just talk that out. Even if, because I have opened the doors for even our firm, and I know that Mr. Miller has supported that when we've had, survivors that needed resources, and we've been able to put them in contact with other advocates and other resources, especially in the Houston area, to just help them navigate. I think it's just important that you have that mental piece to process what's happened to you, and then you may change your mind. That's okay. Whatever you're feeling and wanting to do in your heart, I think is always going to be the right thing for you. And so just that's just my extra push in Sexual Abuse Awareness Month is just, the mental health piece, to make sure that survivors out there are, taking care of themselves.
Yeah, taking care of themselves, being heard. I think that is all very, very important. So, Attorney Rochelle Guiton, I want to thank you for being on the show. I know some of you guys are waiting for a giveaway that we're giving, so just make sure that you tune in after our logo pops up on the screen. So, Attorney Rochelle Guiton, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show and to really specifically talk about something that's your calling, that you've had so many years of experience and you do it so well in regards to having that trust for your survivors, having that love and compassion, and fighting that big fight, and get justice. So I want to just thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you so much for having me, Mighty. It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely. So definitely tune in here. In 2 seconds, we're going to be right back on. But for those of you guys who are watching, I want to thank you guys for tuning into the show. I want to thank you guys for sharing the show. The more you share, the more knowledge we're able to spread, the more awareness that we can give for those that are in seeking the type of awareness and the type of knowledge as well. So I want to thank all of you guys for tuning in to Talk to Me Tuesday. Stay tuned for the giveaway. All right, so now we're here on the moment that you guys have all been waiting for, and that is we give back to the community. This month, we always give a heroic behavior. We have something special to give away. Now, Attorney Rochelle Guiton, we do this every single month, and it's so rewarding to give these gifts to someone that's super happy and just can't or doesn't think they'll ever win, right? So this month, we're giving a special giveaway for our mothers.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Well
Yes, and I know there's a lot of mothers out there. And look, we want to give something rewarding because Mother's Day is around the corner, and it's coming up. So we definitely want to give a prize to honor our mothers out there. You know, get some spa day, a blow dry your hair, something to pamper you. That's what we're here about. So we're going to do a spin the wheel. Rochelle, are you ready for this?
I am ready.
All right. So let's take a look to see who the winner is.
Every month, all you gotta do is like, share, and tag. Hey guys! Every month, we do something called heroic behavior.
Congratulations! Oh my God, we're so excited. The winner is Billy Holmes. So run, go to your direct messages. We are going to send you a message so you could claim your prize. And Attorney Rochelle Guiton, for the mothers out there, including yourself, this month we're giving away a whopping...
Oh, a hair dryer and a hair straightener.
Exactly, a Mother's Day kit. And we're going to throw in some flowers on there. So Billy Holmes, if you have a mother or a wife who's a mother, I know this is going to be a great gift for them. And we want to thank you for participating. For those of you guys that are watching and are thinking, I never win. We do this every month, so don't worry. Make sure you look at our social media because it's only 4 little steps and it's absolutely free. You just have to use one little finger. So just want to congratulate you on winning. Make sure you claim your prize. Until next time.